You know, the economy can certainly influence some of the decisions we make in our investments and our retirement plans. And Jerry Slusowitz from Pacific Financial Planners is going to tell us what we should and shouldn't do when the economy goes up, down, or sideways, or indifferent, right? So.
That's exactly why I'm here. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Absolutely. Now, we're not talking about the stock or the market crash of 2008. That's like, oh no, there's not a lot of great advice in that world. There's some safety places you put your money, but we're talking about when we make slight adjustments in the economy and what direction it might be going, right?
Sure. The economy seems to be slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
I think people agree with that, which
right.
means that we've had a good economy. Mm-hmm. And granted, we had that high inflation where
mm-hmm.
Prices went way up. And the thing is people still think we have that high inflation. Well, those prices aren't coming down.
Right.
They're just rising at a less quick manner. Mm-hmm. But that has really slowed consumer spending. Mm-hmm. Okay, sure, there's a lot of wealthy people in the community. Those folks are going to be fine no matter what happens. But mm-hmm. a lot of seniors that give up their paycheck that are on a fixed income, these higher prices mm-hmm. has caused them to have to make decisions about what to buy and maybe where to cut back on mm-hmm. certain areas. Mm-hmm. And so that is causing a slowdown in the economy, and there's a lot of fear that there might be a recession around the corner.
Right. So if people are concerned about a recession coming, and they, hey, this is what my income plan is right now, but if recession changes that, in what ways do you maybe fine-tune or micro-adjust someone's retirement plan when we're in the area of a recession?
Well, there's some good things and there's some bad things. So you've got to watch, you don't want to step on a landmine, and some of your stuff might be doing really well.
Right.
But one thing that has really happened is we finally, first time in almost 20 years, have some interest rates at the bank, like CD rates in the 5% mm-hmm. zone.
Right.
Treasury bills over 5%, state tax exempt. So those are safe, guaranteed investments with no risk that are returning 2% over the rate of inflation.
And the percentage of return can be calculated even higher when we're talking about not paying state income taxes or whatever the taxes on those things too, right?
Like T-bills, for example. Yeah. But in the end, if we do have a recession, then generally what happens is interest rates go down. Mm-hmm. That's your mm-hmm. cost of money. Mm-hmm. And it becomes lower. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, because the rates were better for a year or less, a lot of people have a preponderance of their money in these short-term vehicles, mm-hmm. okay? Mm-hmm. So if you do think that the economy might slow and that they might start lowering interest rates, which is what the Fed is telling us, that they might lower interest rates, then extending out those maturities a little further to lock in these higher rates for longer is a good idea, because they might find themselves renewing these CDs next year instead of 5% and maybe 2 or 3%.
Okay.
And that's, it's not like a risk to your principal, but it's a risk on your return. Mm-hmm. So to strategize in advance of that, or what I call a barbell strategy, take a portion of your money mm-hmm. and extend it out, and keep a portion of it liquid, because we don't know what's going to happen. Is it going to be a recession? I mean, I would say if we did have one, it'd be mild, so I'm not really afraid of one, because it's been a decent economy.
Seems like the soft landing everybody had hoped for is what seems to be happening. Is, like you said, a mild recession, right?
So Jay Powell, our Fed chair, he was very slow on raising interest rates, which mm-hmm. kind of got that inflation, out of the bag and, mm-hmm. and caused a lot of heartache for a lot of people. So he doesn't want to be slow on the other side as the economy slows. So I think that they're going to be proactive. There's a meeting here in July. I'm not sure they'll cut this month, mm-hmm. but I think they're going to cut between now and the election, at least one rate cut, with more to come, later in the year, or certainly next year.
Yeah, okay. And so what are some of the mistakes people make with their investments when we get in this kind of situation?
Well, one of the biggest mistakes that I see over and over, Michael, is when people retire and give up the paycheck, mm-hmm. there has to be this mental mind shift from trying to grow your money, and selling the growth to take your distributions mm-hmm. to live off of, or take your required minimum distributions, to more of an income style investment, which is safer. Mm-hmm. And I see that all the time, where people have way too much money in the stock market. And I'm not saying have no money in the stock market.
Sure.
You want some growth, but you want to have more of an income bent. Mm-hmm. That's mm-hmm. one of the biggest mistakes out there, because misunderstanding the effects of volatility on the market, mm-hmm. if we did have a big correction, mm-hmm. That can devastate people on fixed incomes. Mm-hmm. And another big area is titling. They have a trust, but the account at Charles Schwab or Merrill Lynch or whatever is still titled in a joint name, or they have an IRA and they don't have their beneficiaries correct. Or they don't have a contingent beneficiary.
When you put through those, when you're in your 20s and 30s, you put down your beneficiaries. Probably was your mom or dad when you were a kid. You weren't even married yet in some cases, and so those things are definitely things to check on, right?
Yeah, no, it's important to do a beneficiary checkup at least every other year, and a lot of times it's just the computer. TD Ameritrade was bought by Charles Schwab, and as they're migrating the information over, you probably had it right, but sometimes it just gets cut off. I mean, you want to trust the computers for everything? AI is coming, but let's not rush the deal. You're still responsible to make sure that your beneficiaries are correct,
right?
And it could be through no fault of your own or no fault of your advisor. But those things happen. You want to make sure you have a primary beneficiary, contingent beneficiary.
Good luck explaining that to the probate judge.
Yeah, exactly.
When we talk about income versus investments in the stock market, are we talking about like passive incomes, like maybe a rental property, or what are some examples of like an income investment that gives you monthly income?
Well, yeah, I mean, you could do rental property. There's all kinds of things like that. You could still have interest in business, et cetera. But the thing is that rental property to me is not passive, because now you have to. What if the
roof and plumbing?
If something goes out or whatever, you've got to fix it. You've got to collect the rent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are ways right now that you can get income through investments that are paying 5, 6, even up to 10% steady income, and people go, "Oh, that's risky." No, some investments are designed to pay that. So you mentioned real estate. So if you've had real estate your whole life, you believe in real estate, you could do real estate investment trusts, REITs, and there's these private placement ones that I wouldn't touch, but there's like 200 that list on the exchange. And so many of these communities right around here are part of a bigger group, and the rent that they collect, 80% of it goes to you, the investor, flows down to you. So if it's, you can get 8% off of owning senior housing properties. Well, do you think senior housing is a growth industry? I do.
I do, yes.
You look at the demographics of the baby boomers. So, that's a safe way to get safe income and maybe even a little bit of growth on top of that 8% income.
Okay. So what other ways can the recession maybe negatively impact seniors?
Well, again, the biggest thing that I see is that a lot of people have way too much exposure to the stock market. Now, a recession and lowering interest rates might be good for the stock market to some degree, but I had a prospect come in yesterday, right? And we had told her, "Hey, bring in the statements," and she couldn't even access the information. She was 68 years old.
Oh,
doesn't even know what she has. And again, I'm not trying to be critical,
right?
But there's a lot of people in the community, a lot of our viewers right now, that have investments. They don't really understand them. They don't know if they're good. They don't know if they're bad. And you start getting into a negative environment like a recession, and they could get double whammied. It's important to get a review, to know where you are, to have some understanding of whether or not you're positioned for a recession or how you're positioned for any kind of environment.
Okay. And speaking of that, you do those reviews every Thursday of the month, or whichever it's coming up next week.
No, this week.
This week.
Yeah. It's the 11th.
On the 11th. Okay.
Clubhouse 7, 3 to 5 Thursday. Hey, it's the Financial Forum. It's a club here in the village, and anyone can come. Just show up. You don't have to sign in. You don't have to do anything. But it's a forum where it's a group discussion on different topics. This is going to be retiring in a recession, but everyone joins in. Anyone can ask any questions, and you can remain anonymous and learn more about finances and investments.
And if somebody wants to say, "Hey, I'd like to do a financial audit of me and see where I'm at," and that kind of thing, you can at least set something up like that there too.
We run this thing called a retirement risk report. It's everyone who's gone through it thinks it's excellent. You're under no obligation to do any business. It's absolutely free.
Okay, perfect. Sounds great. Jerry, Pacific Financial Planners, thank you always for being here. And everybody go out and see Jerry Thursday. There's probably going to be coffee and donuts too. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Michael.
When we come back, we'll be talking about an ice cream social coming up. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.